welcome to our listeners. I believe this is episode 9 of Thrive in Wabash County podcast. It's kind of hard to believe we are nearing the double digits already, but here we are and enjoying this process. Today, I'm joined in the studio with Alex Downard, one of the co-hosts. But in today's episode, he's going to take kind of a dual role and be co-host and also take some of my questions regarding the Imagine 185's program that's the Wabash Fellowship. And we're going to go into a little deep dive of how that started, where it's going, and what kind of success we've had. And we're fortunate enough to have Conner in the studio today. And believe it or not, this is Conner's kind of day before his official start date. And so welcome to the studio, Conner.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here.
Alex, I thought we'd maybe get started with you and talk a little bit about the Imagine 185. We've brushed up on this Imagine 185 a couple times, but for the listeners that are maybe just tuning in for the first time or aren't familiar with what the Imagine 185 is, give us just a quick little 2 minutes of what started the Imagine 185, what was the goal, and kind of where we're at in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. We could probably, and I know, Adam, we've talked about this, we could probably do an entire episode just on the Imagine 185 process, right? Not the initiatives or the projects that have moved out of it, but just the process. But just real quickly, Imagine 185 came out of an effort back in 2018, 2019, when Grow Wabash County and the Community Foundation started to convene our leaders locally to address the 4 consecutive decades of population decline that Wabash County's faced, right? So 4 decades, 40 years, Wabash County had seen a decline in our population, whether it's aging population, losing people, whatever it may be, right? At that time, they convened the leaders of all 5 cities and towns, the government leaders of all 5 cities and towns, and the county, and then all of our other nonprofit organizations and leaders of the private sector and philanthropy to say, we have to do something about this, right? If we're going to change the population trend, we've got to do it together, right? And so that kind of kick-started a 2-year comprehensive planning process that was then branded Imagine 185, so Wabash County's county number 85, so imagining one community into the future. And as a part of that process, there was over 1,000 stakeholder engagement points from community members that helped define the projects, the programs, all the initiatives, the action items that are included in that comprehensive plan. And so all of our local units of government adopted that as their comprehensive plan. So it's really common for an organization or city or a town to have a comprehensive plan, less common that everybody adopts. All communities across community lines, countywide, adopt that as their comprehensive plan, right? And plan for the future of how to address population decline.
And so when you say everybody bought in, you've got LaGrow, LaFountain, Manchester, Rowan, City of Wabash.
And Wabash County.
And Wabash County
unit of government.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And so on brand, there's 85 action agenda items in the Imagine 185 plan that after that plan was adopted in the summer of 2022, again, the community's unprecedented said, not only are we going to remain committed to collaborating like we did through the planning process, but equally to the plan's implementation. That's the important part, right? That plan can sit on a shelf like most strategic plans do for organizations or communities. But if we really want to change that population trend, we have to do it differently and we have to do it together. And so at that point, that's really when I started working here in the county. I had been a resident, but when I started doing a lot of work here was as the director of Imagine 185. And I started that work in 2022 and reported directly to that Imagine 185 advisory board, which made up of a leader of each of our cities and towns. So those 5 communities, the county, the Community Foundation, and Grow Wabash County made up the advisory board for the implementation work. And so did that for 2.5 years before I started my new role at the Community Foundation.
And so the program that we're going to talk about today, the fellowship program, that's part of the overall scope of work, Imagine 185. Tell me how that program specifically kind of, that started somebody's brainchild, and it's not just like, hey, this is going to happen. It goes through a lot of evolution and a lot of issues that have to be resolved. And we're going to get into some of those today, that what makes this program unique. It's not just an internship program. It's an immersive program. So that created some additional responsibilities for you 2 years ago or 3 years ago when you first started coming up with this idea. Tell me a little bit about what the process was like, how the idea came about, and how it got to where it's at now.
So one of the 85 action agenda items in the Imagine 185 plan was to create a internship program that built a new pipeline for our employers, right? A college internship program that allowed our employers to see candidates that they may not otherwise have seen, right? And so like anybody that's in this work realizes that to take an initiative on paper or a high level idea like that and to bring it to fruition takes a village, right? It takes a lot of people. And so when we were starting to work through the different initiatives early on in the implementation of Imagine 25 and on this project specifically, I couldn't quite wrap my head around it myself, right? And so I pulled together a group of thought leaders together at the Honeywell Center. I remember it in the room and just were bouncing ideas off of each other, right? And I said, I'll do the work, right? I'll run down the rabbit holes. I'll put it together. I just need your brains for the next hour and a half to wrap around what this might look like, right? And so there were different members of the community that knew of different summer internship programs. Fort Wayne, there was a program in California we looked at, a program in Detroit. And so we started looking at those and pulling the pieces of them that we liked, right, to build our own program. In economic community development work, right, you don't have to recreate the wheel. There's programs across that somebody's doing something, right, that you could take, but you're always going to have to make it your own, right, mold it and make it your own.
To make it truly successful, you have to make it your own.
That's right. Absolutely. And so those group of leaders, what we kept running into was, okay, we're putting together this comprehensive internship experience for college students, but where are we going to house them? Right? We kept running. We don't, like most communities, right? We have a housing shortage for full-time residents. We don't have enough apartments. We don't have enough houses. And so to take for a 12-week summer period, we define the program as a 12-week over the summer. Where are we going to put students for 12 weeks, right? And so we looked at tiny houses, we looked at all types of different things, but ultimately what we landed on for the first year of the program was we're going to partner with Zoomers, which is a local RV retail company here in Wabash County. And so we took this idea, we sat down with Zoomers about what does this look like if we rent RVs and we build, obviously Wabash County has a lot of natural amenities, outdoor amenities, right? Trails, rivers, everything. What if we build on that outdoor adventure kind of theme with RVs, if that's where we house the college students here, right? And Zoomers was a fantastic partner, was all in. And so we rented 10 RVs, brand new RVs from Zoomers. And so for the first year of the Wabash County Fellowship Program, we housed the students for the 12 weeks in the RV, right? And that's where that's how we took care of the housing challenge.
So I think the fact that you rented from Zoomers, a local company, a partnership there, really impactful. I think for a lot of people, the question is, how is this funded then? If you're actually renting RVs, that's not cheap. So how is this program supported by, regional efforts or local efforts, or are there statewide initiatives that we can use?
Yeah, absolutely. So like any new program, right, you don't have a track record to be able to raise funds or apply for grants or anything like that, right? And so it was truly, we were scrapping it to try and pull together a budget for the program. And so how the fellowship program budget in year one, when we started the program, looked like was that each of the 10 internships are all paid internships. That's directly with the employers, right? So doesn't come through the program's books. That's directly with the employers. But each of the participating employers support the budget, pay into the program for all of the activities and the housing and everything we put together. The employers support the program as well, so make donations to the program. We had some private donors that supported the startup of the program, and then our communities funded the rest of the budget. And so really what it broke down for year one was 50% private funding, so companies or individuals, and 50% our local communities, local units of government paid into the program out of the Imagine 185 budget.
Thank you for that detailed dive. I think a lot of people have heard of the program. Obviously, there was a lot of talk, and they were aware of all the trailers parked down, or motorhomes. I'm not sure what the correct term is, but they were parked down at the city's RV park all summer, and that created some buzz. But I'm not sure that the regular folk that are working hard every day knew what was going on here.
Yeah.
And so for the employers, what's this mean for them?
Absolutely. So when we were starting the program, I was going around to different employers in Wabash County, right? So we said, what our community's committed to when we started, we said we were going to do a 2-year pilot of the Wabash County Fellowship Program. And we were going to have 10 students year one, 10 students year two, and then for year three, figure out how we were going to grow, expand the program, or if it didn't work, end it, right? But that we were going to commit to 2 years of this. So as I'm going around talking to the partner employers that we need to get 10 unique internship roles, job descriptions, right, for summer internships with our different employers, as I'm going around talking to them, the biggest thing, my biggest worry with those employers was, all right, if we're going to build this comprehensive experience to pour into these young people while we have them for the 12 weeks, it has to be a meaningful professional experience. That's what's going to really attract the students in, at least to come for the summer, is that professional development and that job experience that they're going to get, right? And so as I'm talking to our different employers, the line I always used with them was, it can't be stuffing envelopes in a corner or making copies, right, as an intern. It's got to be meaningful things, not just for the student, not for the intern, but for you as an employer, right? This is an opportunity. My commitment to you is that if you put together a unique professional experience for that internship, I'll put candidates in front of you. We'll work our tails off and put candidates in front of you that you otherwise may not have seen, right, if not for this program. Mm-hmm. And man, this program is just such a great snapshot of Wabash County in general, but our employers and the community continue to step up, right? The roles that our employers put together is what made the program work year one. It's what made the program work. We didn't have fancy marketing collateral year one. So when we're trying to recruit students to apply for these positions, because all the employers interview the students, we have one common application where we list all the different jobs and what the roles are, information about the companies. So we collect all the applicants through that portal, but then we sort them and send them directly to the companies, and they run their own interview process. Okay. So they ultimately make their own selection, right, for who the best fit is for whatever role they put together. And so when you don't have the fancy marketing collateral to engage college students, I said it was a lot of smiling and dialing, right? I mean, we were reaching out at a grassroots level to colleges and universities across the state of Indiana, and any statewide group or chamber that we could get in front of that had an audience of college students, whether it was the Indiana Economic Development Corporation, the Indiana Talent Network, Ascend Indiana, we were meeting with all of these groups, telling them about this program we were putting together to hopefully garner enough applicants to make it meaningful for our employers.
And you keep saying we reached out, we did this. Who was we?
Well, it was a program out of Imagine 25, right? And so it was my role day to day was my project, right? I was responsible to the Imagine 25 board, to our employers, to our community to stand this up, right? And
so it was you. When you say we, but it was you. You were there. And did you have some help? You brought out an intern yourself, right?
Yep. So my own personal experience, I got so much out of my internships when I was in high school and college, and just probably learned just as much from my internship experience as I did in the classroom. And so for me in my own career, when I've started, I've always had a high school, a college intern, or both, or sometimes two, because I so firmly believe in it. And frankly, it's cheaper help, right? But it is a lot of work to host an intern. Any employer that's had a high school or college intern, it is work, right? And so it is a commitment from our employers. And so absolutely, I had a couple interns myself that helped bring the program to fruition. But then again, in Wabash County spirit, when we were building this thing, our other organizations, Visit Wabash County, now in a more formal way, but when we started the program, Visit Wabash County is our tourism bureau, countywide tourism bureau, but Christine Florent and the team there, Adam, you've served on that board, has turned into so much more than just about driving one-time visits, right? Christine's line is, it starts with a visit. And that organization has continued to develop the programming, the experiences they build, but really I call them our chief storyteller for Wabash County, right? They're our chief marketing agency. Incredible marketing team there and staff to be able to do it. But they bring Wabash County to life on social media, digitally, all the different platforms. This podcast is an example of how they've leaned into that. And so Visit Wabash County in year one of the program just leaned in from the jump, right? But that's the Wabash County way, right? That's the spirit. And so I say we because absolutely, was it a lot of my time? But man, it wouldn't have been possible without the partner employers, without the support from our communities, and then just everyday residents, Adam, like yourself, that lean in year one to the program that brought it to fruition.
Yeah. Well, I should mention to our listeners that we're recording this. It's May 31st, and the fellowship program for the summer of 2025 just got started. I've had the opportunity to meet most of the fellowship participants this year, but this episode won't release until the end of July. I think you're probably hearing this on July 29th or after. And so the idea was to be able to tell the story about what led into the fellowship program. We'll go into a little bit more of the details and what this looks like from the participant, both the business and the student, and talk about their experiences. And hopefully we'll have an opportunity to bring some of those students on later this summer after they've fully immersed themselves into the program and into the community, and then give us a little bit of their feedback and what was positive from the experience. So this leads me to introduce our next guest sitting here in the podcast. Conner, it's Hindman?
Hindman, yep.
Welcome to the studio. Conner, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, how you found yourself in Wabash County, and then now in this role where you're going to be a program director of the fellowship.
So I grew up in a super similar community from Tipton County, Indiana. Graduated from Tri-Central High School, so super small, 1A, graduated with 60 kids. And I was an athlete, so I came to Manchester University, which is in Wabash County. Played football there for 4 years. Was a captain for 2, thankfully. And I'm a business management marketing major. Graduated this past May, so fresh, newbie, but super thankful.
Like a week ago.
Yeah,
a week ago today.
Yeah. And so, but we were talking earlier just about immersing yourself in opportunities. And that was something I wish I could go back and change, was my freshman and sophomore year. I wish I immersed myself in those opportunities more, because as soon as I did, my junior and senior year, man, it took off. And I wish I had opened my eyes to what Wabash County had to offer. And I think that's where a lot of misconception comes. And I know this is more of an intro, but I wish I had immersed myself in the county more, because once I really learned about it and took on those opportunities and talked to professors more and engaged more, it really showed me what this community has to offer compared to back home. It's, again, super similar in size and structure, and it really feels like home. And so within my senior year, immersing myself in those opportunities, I had a professor reach out to Alex, who's really close with, and kind of engaged us and brought us together. And just meeting with Alex, it just instant click. We connected really well, I think. And so I interned with Alex before he took on his role with the Community Foundation when he was a private contractor. And so was with him with his transition, and along with his transition, that's where I'm stepping into the role of the project manager here within a week, or Monday. So
Official title's Project Manager of Imagine 185.
Okay. Well, congratulations on your
Thank you. Appreciate it.
On the new job and on graduating from Manchester. Big accomplishment. And it sounds like you had a great football career as well, and captain for 2 years.
Had a great time, great experience. Probably wouldn't change anything about it. Lots of highs, lots of lows, but being able to be a leader and learn all those tangible factors that help you later on in life, I would never change. And I don't think I could have gotten that experience anywhere else. The way I was able to interact with the community really was special to me. Yeah. So,
well, for both of you, Alex, you're youngish, right? I mean, I'm nearly 50, so
thanks for the ish. That's good.
And Conner just graduating.
Yeah.
You guys are able to connect with these college students at a level that I probably wouldn't be able to. You know, times are different than when I graduated 25 years ago or whatever that was, right? So you're able to kind of see them where they're at, and explain to me what that's like for the intern fellowship when they come to town. They get to see you, introduce you, for the first time, and you're kind of showing them around. What's that experience like?
Yeah, I've talked about this with him a little bit, and it just puts me in a position of having to be more mature and not and necessarily grow up quicker. But I need that, and it's good for me. But I also think it's welcoming for them to see somebody who they in a year could be in similar shoes as me, with being a graduate and getting a job right out of school and moving to a place like this. I think that it helps validate kind of what we're doing and show that, hey, if you trust in us, look, I trusted in him, trust in us, we can get you in a similar role, whether it's here, Indiana, but just growing those career opportunities for them. I think seeing younger people like us really helps boost their confidence in the program, and just trusting that we've been there, we know what it's like. It goes quick, but I think it helps show that we kind of can know what we're doing.
Yeah.
So.
Gosh darn it, man. I think that one thing that I am so grateful for that I didn't appreciate at the time when I was first coming out of school or when I was at Manchester University, and now I so appreciate, one of the greatest parts about in a rural community, right, is the opportunity to make an impact right away, right? Like rural communities, when they realize that you're with them, that you're rolling up your sleeves, you're in the trenches, and you're on the team, right? Like you're ready to go, you're in the boat rowing with them. They are so open, or at least I can only speak for Wabash County, right? Wabash County has been so embracing of that. And so that is one of the best parts about Wabash County and rural communities, is that early on in your career, you have such an opportunity to make an impact and work on really, really unique and cool things that just allow you to learn so much quicker, right? I think that, Adam, your question about what is that like interacting with younger guys for these college students when they get here, hopefully it embodies to them and shows them the opportunity that if they pour into their internship with that employer, whether it's coming back to work for that employer or another employer here in Wabash County, they have an opportunity to really grow and grow fast in their career to where Indianapolis, Chicago, even Fort Wayne now may not offer that same opportunity. You may work in that community your entire life. And so whether it's professionally or even volunteering in the community, right? The opportunity to serve on boards, committees, volunteer, you can just have such an impact and find so much purpose in that. Professionally or personally, again, if it's the volunteer side, that I think it would just take so much longer. And being from Indianapolis, being from a bigger city, I've talked on the show before, the podcast before, about not feeling that connection to community. But man, in the 12 weeks that those students are here, I hope and I know that they'll all walk away at least saying, I know that if I moved to Wabash County, that I could have an impact, and I'm so close to the purpose of my work and the purpose within the community.
Couldn't agree more. And I want to get into a little bit about what makes this fellowship program different than a traditional internship. I think of a traditional internship when I was in college, didn't take one. I just had a full-time job like the whole time I was in school. But I know people went away, went to Indianapolis and did a summer internship at a law firm or wherever. But I don't know that it's the same as what you guys are offering right here in Wabash County. So tell me what sets this program apart from a traditional internship fellowship program.
I'll give the history maybe of where we are, how we got to where we're at today, and then I would love for Conner to speak about just when he heard about the program, first as a college student, and then now being the one responsible and helping run the program, right? What he believes that kind of value add is, the unique value proposition is for the program. When we were building it in that room at the Honeywell Center with the thought leaders, right, when we were coming up, picking the different pieces from the program that we liked, we knew that if we were going to get college students from across the state, across the country, to choose to spend their summer in Wabash County, we had to do something special and put something special together, right? The unique elements of what I would say, the value of our program that other programs may not have or may not have the comprehensive things that we offer, right? One is the housing piece. Students that participate in our program have housing provided for them at no cost. So they're getting a paid internship while they're here. All of the internships are paid. Last year, our average wage was $22 an hour. This summer, I believe it's $20 or $21 an hour. And we had a PhD student in the first year of the program and a master's student in the first year of the program. And so they were making a higher wage. But now this year, even still over $20 an hour for an internship, right? Mm-hmm. So competitive pay from our employers. Again, our employers stepping up to the plate. Included housing, we're only able to do that because of the generosity of both our communities and the private folks that have supported the program, right? And so those are both unique things that I think make the program attractive. But similarly, as I asked our employers to put together this experience, and we'll do our part by putting candidates in front of you that you may not have seen if not for this program. As a community, we knew we had to roll out the red carpet while they were here for the 12 weeks in the summer. Right. And so what it ends up looking like tactically day to day in the program is that we have comprehensive experiences across the entire county that highlight all of the different businesses, amenities across Wabash County in the 12 weeks that they're here. And even taking them on the trolley number 85 that Visit Wabash County runs. We have this trolley in Wabash County. We're taking them to a Tin Caps game in Fort Wayne to show them that just 45 minutes down the road, you can go to one of the best minor league baseball stadiums in the country and watch a baseball game on a nice summer night, right? And so just that kayak trips down the river, discounts or free admission to Honeywell shows. Honeywell has been an unbelievable partner. All of the different, whether it's comedians, whether it's concerts that they offer in the summer, they have been an unbelievable partner in the fellowship program. They do the Honeywell Arts Academy, which I'm sure we'll do an episode on and cover that unbelievable, unique program that Honeywell does. They give free tickets to all of their shows all summer long to our fellowship students while they're here, right? Our Wabash County YMCA donates memberships for all of our fellowship students while they're here. The library, free membership to any Wabash County library for our students while they're here. Those little things that all come together, right? Our entire community coming together to roll out the red carpet. to build this comprehensive package paired with the housing, paired with the competitive pay for these internships that make it extremely attractive for students. That in the first year of the 10 students we had 4 from outside the United States. So 4 international students that chose to spend their entire summer in Wabash County. We had a student from the state of Washington. We had a student going to college in Pennsylvania. So East Coast, West Coast, internationally in the first year of the 10 students that we had. Again, because of all of our community coming together to put together that package that we were able to advertise and offer to these college students and the universities as we were advertising the program, we were able to hold true to our promise to the employers. One of our employers had an engineering role that they were looking to hire for. We had 8 Rose-Hulman engineering resumes that employer was able to review. Rose-Hulman is if not the number 1 top engineering school in the entire country. And 8 of those students applied for an internship in Wabash County for a Wabash County employer, right, to spend their summer here. And so, but again, when I say we, it is because it does take a village, and it takes all of those pieces coming together. And that's just what we could advertise for the program. Mm-hmm. That's not Adam Stakeman and Clint Kugler and their friends coming together, hosting at their house dinner for these students and going around the circle and saying, I wasn't from Wabash, but I chose here and here's why. And for all of our students to get to hear that, we can't advertise those experiences. We can't advertise them bumping to you at the YMCA every morning.
That's what I was going to say. That was my first introduction. I knew the program was happening, but I hadn't had the opportunity to meet any of the fellows last year. And then I kept seeing the same group of like 3 or 4 students every day at the YMCA, and just conversation, find out why they're in town. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm familiar with the program. But to hear them tell me, as somebody that's not part of the program, how much fun they're having, that's impactful for them. Some of the other things that you didn't mention was like that the Wabash Run the River went right past where they were living at last year. And you had participants that decided, hey, yeah, we're going to run the half marathon or the 10K. And then you had the rest of the fellows out there like cheering them on. And that,
making signs, yeah.
And that was within the first probably 2 weeks of them being in the county. They were already participating and in living life as a Wabash resident.
Yeah. We had a breakfast tailgate down there, right? And we could walk. What it really shapes out to be is they have a comprehensive event calendar that Visit Wabash County is the partner in the program helps put together, right? Where they see all of the events that are going on in the summer, the first Fridays, the farmers markets, the karaoke's at the different bars or restaurants, right? They have that calendar. But then 2 times a week, we have fellowship-specific events. So typically 1 on the weekend and 1 during the week, where it's a networking reception with professionals in the county, right? Where it's a kayak trip down the river, it's the Run the River, right? So there's events that are going on in the community already that we include the fellows in, and we have organizations that step up and donate admission or donate tickets. And then we have fellowship-specific events that we put together just for these students while they're here.
And if I remember right, they even volunteered their time. The LeGros Foundation's festival.
LeGros Good Old Days.
Good Old Days. Yep. Last year, they were there manning booths and volunteering their time for kids' games, if I remember right.
Yep. One came with me last year for the Habitat for Humanity cleanup day and was getting dirty, picking up, doing landscaping, right? Picking up trash. I mean, yeah. So
more so than just building a relationship with the community and having them participate as for an employer, they're learning, the employer's learning, maybe has a potential, but you're really building a citizen, a solid citizen, no matter where they choose to live. If we hope that they come here to Wabash County, but if they live in Indianapolis, you're building somebody that's going to learn how to participate in their community. Yeah. And that's impactful.
And trying to create that stickiness, right? Whether it's the volunteer, whether it's the employer, whether it's the amenities, whatever it is, right? I mean, the data that's out there that supports nowadays, it used to be where people would find an employer and they would move to that job, right? They'd find the job, they'd move to that place. Overwhelmingly, and even more so with young people, Dr. Michael Hicks from Ball State has a ton of research that supports people are finding the community they want to live in. And whether it's for remote work that allows them to do that, or it's the young folks that are finding the community they want to be in and then finding the job, right? And so, Adam, to your point, the utopia of the program is that those college students graduate from college, move back, work for the employer they interned with, and live in our community. That's best case scenario. But the continuum of success for the program is that they stay in Northeast Indiana. Maybe they live in Wabash County and work in Huntington County. But ultimately, if they stay in the state of Indiana, it's a win, right? Mm-hmm. The reason why the program has gotten some attention and some traction, I think some of the unique elements and the comprehensiveness of it is definitely part of it, like your question, but also because it's a statewide issue. Indiana is a top 5 state in the country for in-migration of students that come to Indiana to go to college. We are in the bottom 10 for retaining those students, right? And so the appealing parts of our program, I think, are definitely a key piece, but also just that we are creating this program that's creating the stickiness of a professional development opportunity with the internships, with the amenities and the fun parts of the program, right? That really just expose the students while they're here to all things that Wabash County has to offer. But in reality, if that student stays in Indiana after they graduate from college, it's a win.
Let's talk, Conner, about those kind of the fun part of the fellowship program. They're going to go to work all day. They're going to get immersed in that culture. But let's talk about the fun things. What are they doing on the weekends? What are they doing midweek that you have planned for this coming year?
Yep. So we just had an opportunity for the drive-in theater up here, which is something that isn't available in all communities. That's something very unique. Again, it's a Honeywell venue. Any Friday night or Saturday night, we have many local restaurants, evening bars that they can go to and hang out where there's local music being played, bands. Alex has touched on having a trolley event to the Tin Caps game. We have another day where we're going to take them on a kayaking trip, take them for breakfast in the morning at LaGros and kayak back down. So all sorts of things where they're going to really get to immerse themselves in everything the community has to offer, the arts, the outdoor adventures, the community aspects of volunteering, everything. They'll get their hands in every single pot we have.
Good. And I know first year you did a really nice job, Alex, of documenting their experience here. And on the Visit Wabash County website, and I'll put a link in the show notes to this. There's written testimonial from some of the participants last year. There was an amazing video that was put together that there's a YouTube. I'll make sure the YouTube link is on the show notes as well. But I think from the participants' standpoint last year, overwhelming success. But how do you judge and how do you measure this as a success or not? I mean, Alex, you said even if we can keep them in the state, but long term, how do you measure this and how do you follow up?
Great question, Adam. We could talk, and we've talked a lot about the anecdotal stories of the success of the program, right? And that the overall macro issues that the program addresses that are challenges that not just Wabash County faces, but statewide, right? And so we're looking at those different larger things, but on a real granular level of the success of the program in year one. Before the summer, 2 of the 10 students had ever been to Wabash County before. Could point us out on a map, 2 of the 10. By the end of the summer in the post-program survey, 10 out of 10 students said that if that employer offered me a job, a full-time job after I graduate, and I could find housing in the community, I would move to Wabash County, live in Wabash County. And again, there's survey biases and everything else, right? The reality of since the post-program survey, of the 10 students that came last summer in 2024, in the first cohort of the fellowship program, 7 of the 10 continued on after the internship in an internship or part-time role with that employer, have taken a full-time role in the area, in Wabash County or surrounding community, that after they graduated, they took that full-time role, or they've moved back to go back through the program or intern this summer with a Wabash County employer, right? 7 of the 10. And so for us, I spoke a little bit to the macro challenges, right? Wabash County and rural communities in Indiana, and really nationwide, have seen a decline in post-secondary educational attainment. And so that's not just four-year college, right? That's a certificate. That's anything after high school. We've continued to see a decline, and it's been a huge issue in Wabash County, and the Community Foundation has addressed on multiple fronts programming to address, as our schools have been great partners in addressing our low post-secondary educational attainment rate. Kids that grow up with 1 of 2 parents in the household that have something post-secondary after high school are 2 to 3 times more likely to go to college themselves, right? And so this program is attracting college students to hopefully stay or move back to our community once they graduate. And so if we get more college graduates in Wabash County and their kids someday are 2 to 3 times more likely to go to college themselves, we're going to continue to address and increase our post-secondary educational attainment rate, right? And Michael Hicks has a lot of research that supports any county in the state of Indiana that has an educational attainment rate less than 40%, your community is declining in population. And so if we look at Imagine 185, which is all, again, back to addressing population decline, if we look at that, this is just one piece of the puzzle, though, of we could almost silo our ability to educate our kids that grow up here in something after high school, or through programs like the fellowship program to increase our educational attainment rate. That single-handedly, according to his research, could reverse population decline in Wabash County.
When I think of the Imagine 185 and what some of the information that came out of that, and then some of the argument that we hear within the county, within the community, and this isn't just here, this is all over. It goes back to the kind of the what came first, the chicken or the egg, right? And so do you need better employment to get people here, or do you need better employees to be able to retain and bring in new business? And there is no one answer. It has to happen at the same time. That starts with education, like you just mentioned. And we can't wait for 15 years for our current students to work their way completely through that. There has to be multiple other things happening at the same time, right? We, like you mentioned earlier, we know that people want to come to a community that they feel that they're appreciated in. And that may be trail development. That's something that really speaks to them. We've got somebody that's working on trail development. We've got the river. We don't have all the pieces yet, but I know that as a community, we're working on all of those.
Yeah. Adam, you made it one thing when I talk about population decline in the community. A lot of times you hear community members that they're like, well, what about our kids that are growing up here, right? Or like, we don't want to grow like crazy. We don't want to be Fishers or Carmel. Absolutely. You're exactly right. But one analogy I always use is we're addressing population decline in Wabash County, or even education, is a sports analogy with baseball, right? That the World Series winning baseball team every year in free agency in the offseason, they're going to go out and they're going to get an ace pitcher or a home run hitter, and they're going to bring those people into the organization. And those teams will be successful. But the teams that win the World Series have a great farm system, right? They have a minor league system where they're pouring into the people at all levels of their organization. That's population, right? Mm-hmm. For us to reverse population decline, the number one priority is pour into our existing residents, right? That's our farm system. How do we continue to pour to retain people, create opportunities to retain our residents that grow up here? But gosh darn it, to your point of we can't wait 15 years. We've got to go out and find the ace pitcher. We've got to pick people up and create initiatives and projects and programs that attract people here too, right? If we're going to do it, it's addressing it on all fronts. And so the fellowship program in its first 2 years, you would put in the population attraction initiative bucket, right? As we look for the program and expanding it moving forward, there may be a lot more retention focus with it too to go along as we look at developing and building it out in the future. But that you hit a point for me that's so important. If we don't get the retention piece right, we have no chance at the attraction piece.
Yeah, absolutely. Conner, if there's local people that want to meet the fellows, they want to find out more information about the program, they want to get involved, how can they go about doing that?
I would say reaching out on the community foundation page. There's going to be me and Alex's email and stuff should be on there, and reaching out and just contacting us. And any of our events we post, and we try to reach out to a lot of community members in general and to invite them to those events. So a lot of forefront process of trying to reach out on our end first rather than you guys have to reach out also. But
one thing that we were fortunate in, after we got through the first year of the program, we were able to garner some outside funding from the state of Indiana that flowed through the Northeast Indiana Strategic Development Commission to support the next 2 years of the program. That as a part of that grant funding, we were able to hire and formalize our relationship and partnership with Visit Wabash County to run all of the marketing and communications for the fellowship program. And so what that's allowed us to do is you mentioned the testimonials, Adam, and you're going to put the link in the show notes to all of the marketing materials that Visit Wabash County has for the fellowship program. The application's there, but just more information about the program and how to get engaged. There's a newsletter that goes out about the fellowship program that listeners can subscribe to right there on that page. And that's a bigger piece to highlight, that outside funding's allowed us to even garner more support from Visit Wabash County, and that's been a great partnership. But it also touches on, we have 10 students in year one of the program. We ended up with 12 this year, right? And so people are saying, well, that's 22 people, right? In theory, if you retain all of them, that's only 22 people. But the reality of of it is what this program has allowed us to do. One is to build relationships with colleges and universities, not just in Indiana, across the country. We have a student from Cal State University this year in the program. So it's allowed us to formalize these relationships with these colleges and universities that, yes, hopefully every year they help us promote the program to put the opportunity in front of the students for the fellowship program. But even greater than that, now they have exposure to Wabash County and to our employers, so that when college students are walking into their office as they're getting closer to graduation and saying, I don't have a job yet, where should I apply for a job? Wabash County is top of mind, right? This program's allowed us to create a unique relationship with colleges and universities that even if students don't come through the fellowship program, hopefully our opportunities that our employers have is on the radar of these colleges and universities because of this program, right? It allowed us to set the table for the conversation with these employers. But what that funding and partnership with Visit Wabash County has also allowed us to do is all of the college student applicants that we get, and then definitely the students that come through, while they're here, it's an intense experience, but now they're getting all of our marketing materials, targeted marketing materials that's pushing Honeywell shows, that's pushing outdoor amenities, that's pushing trolley tours that may be appealing to college students. We get to directly market to an audience with their phone numbers and emails that we otherwise wouldn't have had, right? And so Visit Wabash County, it's not just promoting and marketing the program to get applicants or to collect digital materials that we can use to market the program in the future. It's we're directly able to communicate applicants and students that have came through the program in the past as well.
Mm-hmm. And you say, it's only 22 people, but they're young adults who then have the potential of raising a family here. And we need a people of all generations, right? But as our population has aged, that's not helping our population growth by any means. And so we're bringing in a population, an age that would allow for continuation of growth.
When you look at population, when you measure population, you look at two factors, right? You look at your birth and your death rate. And to your point, Wabash County's death rate has been about twice our birth rate for the last 4 years, at least since 2020. And you look at net migration, which is all the people that move in and move out of your community year over year, right? Wabash County's seen extremely good net migration numbers the last several years. It's a lot. And with net migration, you can do things that you can shape your net migration rate, right? You can create new programs and initiatives that do that, build new housing, right? Different tangible things that you can do. The birth and death rate's a little harder to manipulate. But to your point, Adam, the only way you can control your birth and death rate is by attracting more young people to birth more kids, right? And so this program does that. And not only is it the ripple effect in that standpoint, but our students that have come through are our best marketers back at their college and universities or with their centers of influence to talk about Wabash County and the experience or the employers that they had the opportunity with here.
Yeah. So real quick, we'll wrap things up. But Conner, give me a brief description. Where are the kids coming from this summer that are in Wabash County? I know last year, Alex, we had 2 international students. Four.
Last year 4, this year 2.
Last year 4, this year 2. I messed that up. That was all on me. But when we had West Coast and we had East Coast, where are the kids coming from this year? And do we have any repeat offenders that are coming back to the fellowship program for a second time?
Yeah, we have one repeat. She's from Fort Wayne. And then we have a couple from Fort Wayne, one from California. He's from San Diego, California. Yeah. And then one from Lima, Peru, actually, so South America. And then we have one from Africa. And is it Kenya? Is that where he's from?
Maybe.
But yeah, one of the countries in Africa. So it's awesome having 2 international students. We have a couple from Lafayette. So all over the state of Indiana and the country and the world as a whole. So yeah.
We'll have, Adam, you mentioned at the beginning about having some of the fellows on the podcast this summer. We'll have Ailey, who is a Trine University student, as Conner mentioned, that she's the repeat that's back this year. Mm-hmm. We'll have her get into details about her professional experience that she had in year 1 and what she's working on in year 2, because it is a perfect example, as I talk about our employers stepping up to the plate with this program, the experience that Ailey's been able to have. And we had a community event this week where we had a couple of the fellows come and speak on a panel to one of our local Kiwanis groups. And so the students are talking about their experience, and a question from the audience comes, and the gentleman says, Ailey, that sounds like you've had an unbelievable summer last summer and you're back this summer. Would you ever consider moving to Wabash? And just the look on Ailey's face and the smile and the genuineness of her answer, this place means something to her, right? The program's created that stickiness. The employer, our community, she has relationships with people. She'll tell stories just about some of her interactions here in Wabash. And just in that moment to get to hear her say that, and remembering back to the conversation at Honeywell when we had the group of community leaders to see where we're at today and where it's going to be at 5 years from now, the program and all of the lives and the students we're going to be able to touch, they'll be members of our community with us here, showing up to those networking receptions and events, talking about how they got to Wabash County through this program, right? And that's what it's all about. I said this to Conner when he was in his internship as we were preparing for the program this summer, and then now as he leans in to lead the program moving forward. It's a ton of work, right? It's hard. You're managing college students, right? And getting their application materials. You're working with our employers to try and get things. You're working with the colleges and universities to promote the opportunity. There's a ton of work. It takes a ton of time and people to pour into it. But man, is it all worth it when you get to meet those students when they show up, move in here and get to experience our community. It reminds you why we're doing it. Right. And I think that the interactions that our community will get to have every summer with these students, our community stepped up, rolled out the red carpet like we intended to that day when the idea was thrown out. And it took those leaders pulling things together and to see it come into fruition now has been really cool.
Well, I'm glad to learn that. I think earlier you mentioned that basically you've got a commitment for another year from the Northeast Indiana Economic. So I'm glad to learn that we'll be back for a third year next summer. It was new information to me. So congratulations on that. Huge accomplishment. And I hope we are back 5 years from now as well. Alex, is there anything else you'd like to add to the conversation or to share with our listeners?
No, Adam, I appreciate the questions. I think, and the ability to talk about the program. I mean, it's one of those Imagine 185 projects, because we always break it down, projects and programs, right? Projects are the capital things, the construction, the things that you see. Programs aren't, right? And so to get to highlight this program it's been a lot of fun. Adam, you talk about the program moving forward. We're right now already starting to talk about how we're going to tweak and expand the program for year 3. Like any new program, when you start, you learn, right, as you go. And so we had a lot of those learning moments in year 1. We surveyed our students. We got great feedback, and that's driven year 2, right? And so one of those major changes that we haven't talked about is year 1, they were housed in an RV right down by the river. We got some feedback, right? The RVs, some of the students ran out of hot water. They weren't used to living in RVs. They were small, right? The internet wasn't great, according to them. They weren't able to TikTok and play video games and do homework all at the same time. So we took all that feedback, and what we did for year 2 was we were able to partner with a local couple that has a couple Airbnbs, but Ben and Jen Bailey that own the Sanctuary in Wabash, which is on the website for the program. You can see the space where the students are at this year, but it's an old church that's been renovated into an Airbnb. And so now all of the students are living in the Sanctuary, still free of charge to them, under one roof, huge community spaces in there, huge commercial kitchen. Everything's done very, very nice. And it's just been so far in the couple weeks since the program started, been such a unique add to the experience, the sense of community.
It's almost dorm style is the way I would describe it. So it's something they're probably familiar with and forces conversation amongst them. Yeah.
It took probably a month and a half into the summer last year, the first year of the program, to really start to see the students doing their own thing, right? Like going out in the community just organically, not for our experiences or the events we put together, but just grabbing a couple friends and going to the farmer's market or going out to eat somewhere. Night 1, we got to see those with the students under one roof like that and forcing those conversations. Them organically already planning their own movie night, right? And doing these different things. And that's really cool. That's a unique thing that I'm glad we've been able to do this year for the program. And again, as we move into year 3 and are looking at what that's going to look like, maybe it's a combination of the 2 options that we've done from year 1 and year 2 that students get to choose. We're going to have a more intentional relationship with Manchester University and target a certain amount of spots on top of just the original program, probably Manchester University students, and maybe that's a more comprehensive program since they're here during the school year where we do have some touch points. So more to come and more information as we lean into year 3 in the future of the program.
Great. And I'll make sure I include an email address for the program so that if a community partner, whether it's a residence or a business, wants to find out more and how they can participate maybe in year 3, because this isn't, I think a lot of people on the outside listening in, maybe they're thinking Ford meter box, big manufacturing or just big companies. That's not the case, right? We have a local employer here that has an internship downtown Wabash at Modocs. And maybe you can that's a new employer this year, correct?
Yep.
We also have people that are in for finance and they're at one of the local banks, but it doesn't have to be big manufacturing. It can be a lot of different things. So Conner, if somebody wants to, if they're interested in it, what type of role are you looking to put these students in?
We have several. So one's with Josiah White's, doing some help there. You just mentioned Modocs. She's doing a lot of marketing work. We have 2 or 3 engineer internships. We have the finance internship. So there's just an array, a plethora of opportunities and jobs we would accept. And again, that's on our part of finding those candidates, those high quality candidates that we will bring in for whatever your need is. So I think that, and it's good to have a wide array of opportunities rather than just being all entrepreneur or all finance internships. I think it's great to have those expanding opportunities for them.
Good. Well, I thank both of you for coming into the studio today and sharing about the fellowship program. I encourage citizens, if you see these kids out during the summer, introduce yourself, make them feel comfortable and welcome to our community, because they are making a difference in the short amount of time that they're here. They are volunteering and they're participating. I know that this won't come out until July, but some of them will have participated in the Wabash Run the River by the time this comes out. And so, they're really having an open heart when they come to Wabash and they want to find their next home. So,
Absolutely.
Thanks for being here, guys.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's Thrive in Wabash County podcast. This Destination Wabash County podcast is made possible by the City of Wabash, the Gilman Investment Fund, Sandra Kunkel Trust, Paperworks Industries, Community Foundation of Wabash County, and Visit Wabash County. Thank you, and we'll see you next week.